My son looked me in the eyes and said, "Sell the house, or don't come to the wedding." And just like that, 30 years of motherhood boiled down to a real estate transaction. It wasn't even a conversation, really. "No, are you okay with this, Mom?" "No, we'll figure something out." Just a deadline. And a threat wrapped in a tuxedo. I stood there in the middle of my own kitchen, clutching a mug of chamomile I hadn't even taken a sip of. The tile beneath my feet suddenly felt cold, like it didn't belong to me anymore. "Zach," I started. "Honey, I worked my whole life to pay off this house. Your dad and I." He cut me off. "Dad's dead, Mom. And the wedding's in 6 weeks. Do what you want, but if you're not helping, don't expect to be part of it." And then he left. Left me standing there with cold tea and colder silence. I sat down at the table, the one I bought secondhand 25 years ago, and stared at the smudge on the wall across from me, the one I never painted over. God, I remember Zach drawing on it when he was 3. It was a fire truck. Red marker. Permanent. So were a lot of things back then. Let me rewind a second. I'm 58. I was born and raised in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. I've scrubbed more floors than I can count. Office buildings, hotel rooms, kitchens that looked like crime scenes. When my husband died, Zach was 7. And there wasn't a single minute of those years after that I didn't hustle to keep us afloat. I gave up everything. Holidays, hobbies, friendships. I even stopped playing piano, though God knows I loved it. I became a full-time provider and a part-time ghost. But I told myself it was worth it. For him. Always for him. When he got into NYU, I cried harder than he did. Took a third job just to cover his books. Ate ramen for weeks so he could get that internship in DC, bought him a secondhand suit with my grocery money. And now, he wanted me to give up the house. The one thing that had ever been truly mine. But here's what he didn't know. A month earlier, my longtime employer, Mrs. Eleanor Grayson, God rest her elegance, had passed away. I'd worked as her personal housekeeper and companion for 12 years. And in her will, she left me everything. $6.2 million. Just like that. No strings. No conditions. Just. To Margaret Ellis, who made my final years feel like poetry. I hadn't told anyone. Not even my best friend, Carol. I didn't want to jinx it. But when Zach gave me that ultimatum, I smiled. A soft, silent kind of smile. The kind that sneaks up on you in the middle of a hurricane. He thought he was pushing me into the street. He had no idea I'd already bought a home twice the size of his entire wedding venue, in Cold Spring, New York, with a view of the Hudson and a greenhouse out back. I sold the old house the next week. Not because he asked. Because I was done living small. I didn't leave a note. No dramatic goodbye. No teary letters taped to the fridge. I just packed 2 suitcases, left the keys with the realtor, and booked a one-way ticket to Cold Spring. The last time I'd done something so impulsive was never. I remember sitting on the Amtrak, my knees pressed together, palms sweating on my coat. Everyone around me was sipping coffee, scrolling phones. I just stared out the window like a woman who'd been set free from a cage she didn't know she was in. Let me tell you something I never admitted before. I don't remember the last time someone asked me what I wanted, what I liked, what made me laugh, what made me feel safe. Not my ex-husband. Not Zach. Not even me, if we're being honest. It's like I lived my life on mute. Always adjusting. Smoothing over. Making myself smaller just to fit into whatever shape they needed from me. I remember once, maybe 5 years ago, I was watching this woman at the grocery store. Blonde ponytail. No ring. Buying flowers and dark chocolate. And she was smiling. Alone. I stood there holding a gallon of bleach and 2-for-1 frozen dinners. And I thought, how does she live like that? Like she belongs to herself. Now I know. She probably just stopped asking for permission. The mansion wasn't flashy. It didn't have gold doorknobs or velvet curtains or a chandelier the size of Texas. But it was mine. White brick, wraparound porch, big sunroom that smelled like lemon polish and old pages. Mrs. Grayson had bought it as a retreat after her divorce. She used to call it her untouched symphony. And now she left it to me. Walking in that first morning, suitcase in hand, I swear I forgot how to breathe. The air felt soft. The fireplace was still warm from the last caretaker. The kettle on the stove was blue enamel, the same kind my grandmother used in the 60s. I made tea. Real tea. Not microwave water in a chipped mug, but a proper teapot and leaves and a ceramic cup that didn't have someone else's company logo on it. And for the first time in decades, I sat down and drank it hot. No rushing out the door. No reheating. Just me and the silence. And you know what? I didn't feel lonely. I felt quiet. And quiet, I've learned, is not the same as empty. That day I unpacked slowly. I hung up my 3 good dresses like they were gowns. I ironed my blouse just to eat breakfast. I opened a window in every room like I was letting the ghosts leave. Later, I walked the grounds barefoot, toes sinking into soft grass. There's a garden in the back. Overgrown roses, lavender bushes, a rusted trellis. I made a promise right there, barefoot in the dirt. You're going to live for you now. No more proving. No more begging to be seen. Zach used to say I was too sentimental. But maybe he just meant I had feelings he didn't want to deal with. By sunset, I'd found the old record player in the study. And I played one of Mrs. Grayson's favorites, Debussy's Clair de Lune. The room filled with piano and orange light. And me, swaying slowly, eyes closed, one hand on my heart. I wasn't dancing for anyone. Not to be admired, not to be appreciated. Just because the music asked me to. And for the first time, I let myself answer. I didn't buy the mansion to show off. I bought it to remember who I was, before they all told me who I should be. It's funny. For most of my life, I didn't even know houses like this existed outside of magazines and movies. Houses that breathe, that let light in like a cathedral, that make you feel safe the moment you step through the door. My old place in Philly had character, but it also had cracked tiles, water stains, and windows that whistled when the wind hit just right. This one had floors that whispered when I walked barefoot. Walls that smelled like beeswax and chamomile. Curtains that caught the morning sun like they'd been waiting years just to glow for me. On the second day, I found the music room. Yes, a music room. Not a closet with a keyboard shoved between winter coats. A real room. With sunlight, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a grand piano that looked like it belonged in Carnegie Hall. It was covered with a heavy dust cloth, like it had been sleeping. I pulled it off slowly, like I was waking something sacred, and there it was, black lacquer, ivory keys, soft shine. I hadn't played in 20 years, but my fingers remembered. Mrs. Grayson used to say, "Music is not what you play. It's what you survive while you play it." She taught me everything, not with lessons, but with time. We'd sit together in this very room. She'd play Chopin, I'd hum along, then she'd pour us tea and ask me about my dreams. Can you imagine that? A woman like her, born into old New York money, asking me about my dreams? She was the only person who ever said, "Margaret, you deserve a life as big as your heart." And then she proved it, with her will. That week, I settled into the house like I'd been there forever. I filled the kitchen with spices, bought Real butter, sliced fruit into a crystal bowl like I was filming a commercial. Not for anyone else, just because it felt good. I took long showers with the window cracked open. I lit candles with no occasion. I read books with handwritten notes in the margins, notes Mrs. Grayson had scribbled long ago. She underlined a line from Rilke once. "You must give birth to your own world." I didn't understand it then. Now I do. 3 days in, I finally called Carol, my oldest friend. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Margaret? God, where have you been? Zach says you ran off. That you're having some kind of episode." I laughed. Does buying a piano and drinking Earl Grey count as a breakdown now? She was quiet for a moment. "Wait. You bought a piano. And a house." I told her everything. About Mrs. Grayson's inheritance. About Zach's ultimatum. About the silence I found in cold spring that tasted like healing. There was a long pause. Then, well, I'll be damned. Later that afternoon, I drove into town to buy fresh bread. That's where I met her. A young woman, maybe 28, frizzy curls, oversized flannel, a tote bag covered in paint smudges. She was arguing gently with a realtor outside a storefront. "I just need one shot," she said. "One client who believes I'm not just some intern with lip gloss." I walked past and then turned around. "Are you a real estate agent?" I asked. She blinked. "Yeah. Just got my license. I might need a second property." She stared at me like I was joking. "I'm serious," I said. "And I like your attitude." Her name was Julia. And that day, I unknowingly became her first real client. We didn't know it yet, but both our lives were about to shift in the strangest ways. That night, I returned to the mansion. The porch light flickered on like it recognized me. I stood by the piano with a glass of wine and thought, maybe this isn't a second act. Maybe it's the real beginning. I wasn't a mother anymore. Not really. Not in the way I used to be. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. They thought I'd fallen apart. They didn't realize I'd finally come together. By the end of week 1, the calls started. First Zach. Then his fiancée, Madison. Then her mother, naturally. I didn't pick up. They left voicemails, each one sharper than the last. "Mom, seriously, what are you doing? I'm trying to be patient, but you're making this difficult. Margaret, this is Madison. I don't mean to overstep, but it's extremely irresponsible to disappear like this before a major family event. Margaret, this is Sandra Harper, Madison's mother." I expected more from a woman your age. My phone, my own damn phone, started sounding like a corporate hotline for disappointed relatives. So I turned it off. I didn't vanish. I just stopped being available. Let me tell you something, that's a dangerous kind of power for a woman like me. A woman who's always picked up, always said yes, always showed up even when no one bothered to ask how she was doing. Now I had silence. And money. And most dangerous of all, time to think. I focused on the garden. There's something oddly spiritual about planting lavender with your bare hands when your adult son is probably telling everyone you've lost your mind. I also started helping Julia, the young realtor I met outside the bakery. She'd call me with listings, and I'd meet her for coffee in town. She was awkward at first, always checking her reflection in the spoon, smoothing her eyebrows, but I liked her. She reminded me of me, back before life sanded down all the soft edges. She didn't know much about me yet. I told her I was recently semi-retired. She didn't ask from what. She just said, "Cool," and offered to split a croissant. It was the most honest friendship I'd had in years. On the 10th day, Carol called again. I picked up. "Oh, now you answer." "I had to detox from all the drama," I said, sipping tea on my sunlit porch. "I've been too busy learning to nap." She snorted. "Zach's in full PR mode. Told my husband you've probably fallen in with a scammer." Madison posted some vague Instagram story about watching family destroy themselves. "You're a trending mystery in 3 zip codes." "Well," I said, "it's good to be known for something other than deviled eggs at Christmas." Carol laughed, then got quiet. "You okay, though?" I paused and told her the truth. "I'm better than okay. For the first time in decades. I don't feel owned." Later that week, I saw the first crack in their armor. Zach sent me a picture of a wedding receipt. Florist, photographer, tent rental. The total, $62,400. "Not too late to help," he wrote. "A small contribution would go a long way. No, hope you're okay. No, I miss you." Just an invoice with emotional seasoning. I didn't respond, but I did screenshot it. Because I was starting to collect things. Proof. Not just for legal reasons. For myself. To remind me that I wasn't crazy. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered, thinking maybe it was Julia. It wasn't. Margaret, a woman's voice said. Polished, nasal. This is Sandra, Madison's mother. Of course. I understand you're going through something, she began. That makes two of us, I said coolly. She cleared her throat. Well, let me be direct. We're concerned about appearances. The rehearsal dinner is in 2 weeks. Madison's father and I have covered a significant portion, but it would be helpful if you could match our contribution. Helpful for who? I asked. Because it sounds like it would mostly help you. She exhaled sharply. We're trying to give your son a dignified future. You raised him. I'm sure you want the same. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Oh, I absolutely want that, I said. Which is why I left. I hung up. That evening, I played piano with the windows open. The sound floated through the garden like something sacred. I imagined someone walking by and hearing it, a stranger who'd never guessed that the woman playing Debussy in the big white house had once scrubbed diner floors at 2 a.m. just to keep her son in sneakers. And somewhere in the city, Zach was panicking, because his bank of unconditional support had finally closed its doors. He didn't know about the trust fund, didn't know about the new house or the deed in my name, or the gallery opening Julia had invited me to next week. He only knew I'd stopped being available. And for people like him, that's the real loss. They tried to humiliate me in public. And that's where I reminded them who paid the bill. It was Julia's idea, actually. Come with me to the gallery, she said. I need moral support. And you have the best eye for things that matter. I wasn't planning on going anywhere fancy. My default setting was still invisible in a crowd. But she insisted. And so I did something bold. I wore lipstick. Not coral. Not beige. Red. The kind of red that doesn't whisper. The kind that says I'm here, whether you like it or not. The gallery was in a sleek, modern space in Hudson Yards. All glass and concrete and overpriced wine. I felt like a ghost walking through a designer's fever dream. But Julia looked radiant. Nervous but glowing. She had her portfolio tucked under one arm and a dream bigger than her shoes could handle. I wanted her to win. Not because she reminded me of me, but because I wanted someone to win clean. Then I heard it. A voice I'd know anywhere. Clipped. Sharp. Practiced. Ugh. This is tacky. I can't believe the city lets anyone in these days. I turned. And there they were. Zach. Madison. Sandra. All dressed like they'd just stepped out of a catalog. And all looking at me like I'd tracked mud across their white carpet. Zach's eyes widened. Madison's mouth dropped open. Sandra? She didn't even blink. She looked me up and down and said, Well, I guess we know where the dress money went. Let me be clear. I didn't walk in to make a scene. I didn't plan revenge. But there's something about being dragged through the mud by people you fed, clothed, and sheltered that makes silence feel like surrender. So I smiled. Lovely to see you too, Sandra, I said. Still mistaking credit cards for personality, I see. The air went cold. Madison stepped forward. What are you doing here? I was invited. By who? Julia appeared beside me, smiling nervously. By me. Madison blinked. You brought your... She stopped herself. Your friend. Zach's face darkened. I can't believe you're pretending nothing happened, he said. You abandoned us. I raised an eyebrow. You mean when I sold my house to pay for your wedding, and then disappeared when you told me I wasn't invited unless I paid more? He looked around. People were starting to watch. We were becoming the kind of scene people pretend not to hear while definitely listening. Sandra stepped in, still keeping her smile frozen in place. You don't need to do this here, Margaret. You're right, I said. I could have done it in your living room. But then again, you told me there wasn't space for me there. Madison's voice rose. You made this messy. You're acting like we owe you. I tilted my head. You do owe me. I just stopped collecting. Zach's hands clenched. You're not even rich, Mom. You're playing a role. You're trying to embarrass us. Then Julia, sweet, shy Julia, stepped forward. Actually, she said, voice steady, Margaret just closed on 2 high-value properties through our firm. She paid cash. Madison turned pale. Sandra's eye twitched. Zach looked stunned. What? Julia continued. She didn't want to brag, but she's one of our most respected clients. The room was quiet. Someone nearby whispered, "That's the woman from the trust story, right?" Another said, "She inherited millions, I heard." Sandra scoffed, suddenly desperate. "Don't be ridiculous. She was a housekeeper. She probably stole it." And that was it. I reached into my bag, pulled out a copy of the trust certificate, held it up. "This is legal. Public. Notarized. And if you say one more word about theft, I'll see you in court." Madison hissed. "You wouldn't dare." "I dared to raise your husband when no one else wanted him. You're not even the second most terrifying thing I faced." People were really watching now. Phones out. Eyes wide. I turned to Zach. "You could have had everything. I was going to leave it all to you. The house, the trust, the peace I spent a lifetime chasing." His mouth opened, but no words came. I stepped closer. "But you called me a burden. A liability. You tried to kick me out of my own story." And then I lowered my voice. "So now I'm rewriting it. Without you in it." I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I took Julia's arm, thanked the gallery owner for the wine, and walked out like I had somewhere better to be. Because I did. Home. A real one. He called me a villain online. So I gave the world my side of the story. It started with a friend texting me, "Hey, have you seen what Zach's posting?" No. I hadn't. I'd blocked him weeks ago. But curiosity is a strange beast. I clicked the link. And there he was, my son, sitting in his car, eyes red, voice shaking. My mother abandoned me. After everything I did for her, she just walked away. She got some money and forgot I exist. She didn't help with the wedding. She didn't even show up. I didn't ask for much. Just support, just love. But I guess once she got rich, she decided I wasn't worth the effort anymore. And the comments. God. What kind of mother does that? "You poor thing. Stay strong, bro. She'll regret it when she's alone. She probably got a sugar daddy." I sat there in my reading chair, heart pounding, wine glass untouched. Not because I was afraid, but because it hit me. He wasn't grieving. He was branding, turning me into a plot device for his followers. He was building a platform on my pain. So I opened my laptop, created an account, and went live. The title of my stream? "Hi, I'm the mother Zach keeps crying about." Within 5 minutes, I had 3,000 viewers. 10 minutes in, it was 20,000. People flooded in like ants to honey. I sat calmly on my porch, wind in my hair, the Hudson behind me, and I spoke. I didn't abandon my son. I stopped financing my own mistreatment. I told them the truth. How I worked 3 jobs to put him through school. How I gave him the down payment for his first apartment. How I sold my only home so he could throw a wedding that looked good in photos. And how, the second I stopped handing over money, he called me useless. I held up a document on camera, the trust deed from Mrs. Grayson, explained how she left me $6.2 million, not because I cleaned her house, but because I was the only person who treated her like a human being in her final years. I was going to leave that money to Zach, I said. All of it. Until the day he said, "Don't come to the wedding unless you sell the house." The chat exploded. That's sick. She gave him everything. I want her to adopt me, not the villain we expected. At all. Then I played a voice recording. Zach, 2 weeks before I left, telling me, "You're still healthy? You can work a few more years. Retirement is for people with real jobs." The comments turned. Fast. Some people still doubted me. So I showed the medical receipts, the school invoices, even the old lease I'd signed in my name when Zach couldn't qualify a loan. It was all there. 30 years of evidence that I was more than a bank. I was a mother. A damn good one. And he hadn't just rejected me. He tried to rewrite me. That night, I received a message request from someone named Talia. Hi, I'm Zach's ex from college. Just wanted to say, everything you said tracks. He's always played the victim. Thank you for speaking up. More messages came in. A former teacher, a former coworker, even an old neighbor. He never appreciated you. Not once. But the most unexpected part? Julia. She called me in tears. I watched your stream, she said. And I just wanted to say, you're brave. I'm just tired, I replied. No, she said. You're free. And that scares people. The next morning, I woke up to a headline. Mom goes viral after calling out son's entitlement. Internet divided. They used a freeze frame of me with my tea, looking perfectly unfazed. Zach's followers dropped overnight. Sponsorships pulled out. His wedding hashtag was hijacked with hashtag Team Margaret memes. And suddenly, the phone calls started again. Voicemails. Apologies. Even Sandra tried to reach out. Let's talk this through. We're still family after all. I deleted them all. Because here's the thing. I didn't go public to punish them. I went public to remember myself. To remind me that I wasn't invisible anymore. By the end of the week, my stream had 3 million views. I gained more followers than Zach ever had. Strangers sent me letters. One woman wrote, "Your story made me call my own mother and say thank you. I haven't done that in 10 years. I sat on the porch that night, blanket over my shoulders, watching the stars blink through the trees. No one asked me for anything. No one expected me to give. And in that silence, I finally heard myself breathe. He begged me to come back. But I was already gone. It started subtly, a delivery at the gate. A giant bouquet of white lilies. My favorite, though I'd never told him that. The card read, "I'm sorry, Mom. Please come home. Love, Zach." Home. Interesting choice of word for someone who threw me out of it. I didn't hesitate. I walked straight into the kitchen, pulled open the trash can lid, and dropped the whole bouquet in vase and all. Then I snapped a photo. Sent it to the concierge. If he sends anything else, return to sender. But he didn't stop. For the next 2 weeks, Zach waited outside the gates of my neighborhood like a stray dog in a business suit. Sometimes he held a sign. Sometimes he just stood there, arms crossed, pretending it wasn't humiliating. One day, I rolled past him in the back seat of my car, windows up. He mouthed, "Please. Just 5 minutes." I didn't blink. Didn't wave. Didn't flinch. He had taken 30 years from me. He wasn't getting 5 minutes more. Then it got worse. Apparently, he couldn't accept my silence. So he changed tactics. And brought in Richard. My ex-husband. I hadn't heard from that man in over 20 years. He called like nothing had happened. "Hey, Margaret," he said, casual as ever. "Just a heads up, Zach showed up at my office." "Your office?" "Yep." Made a scene. Told everyone I was lying about not being his biological dad. Demanded a DNA test. I blinked. "Did you take one?" He chuckled. "I did. Just to shut him up." And confirmed what I already knew. He's not mine. And never was. That part, of course, Zach hadn't known. He'd spent his whole life thinking I was the only thing keeping him from some kind of upper-class fairy tale. But the truth was worse. He had no fairy tale. Just me. A woman who picked him up from a dumpster when he was 1 year old. A woman who chose him when no one else would. And that made him furious. He wanted someone to blame for the mess he'd made of his life. But when the lies ran out, he turned to war. That same week, I noticed people in my neighborhood whispering. Side glances. Forced smiles. Until Julia called. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice tense. "Why?" "Because Zach's live streaming again." I laughed bitterly. Of course he is. But this time it was different. He wasn't crying. He wasn't begging. He was spinning. He painted me as a bitter woman with a vendetta, claiming I'd slandered him to get views. He even suggested I'd forged the trust papers, that I'd taken advantage of a dying old lady. He called me greedy, manipulative, emotionally abusive. And his followers? They believed him. For about 48 hours. Then I went live again. Same porch. Same teacup. Same calm voice. This time I showed them everything. The adoption certificate. The hospital bills from his surgeries. Photos of me holding him in ICU rooms. Birthday cards I wrote him every year until he was 18. Then I played the final piece. An audio recording from a security system at the home of the elderly man Zach had once tried to sell me to. She's still got energy. She can cook clean. Probably won't complain much. You'd be doing her a favor. The chat exploded. He's vile. That's elder abuse. She raised him, and this is how he repays her? Within 24 hours, his accounts were suspended. Within a week, a lawsuit was filed. He lost everything. Sponsors, partnerships, even Madison. She filed for divorce 3 days later. Didn't even say goodbye. And me? I didn't celebrate. Didn't gloat. I just exhaled. It was over. The years of working without thanks. Of giving without return. Of loving without being seen. I was done. I sold the mansion that fall. Turned a profit. And bought a small lakeside home in upstate New York. Not big, but warm. Filled with wisteria and lemon light. I painted again. Read books with no purpose. Baked muffins that didn't need to impress anyone. No one called me mom just to ask for money. No one called me at all unless they actually cared. I belonged to myself. Sometimes people ask me, do you regret adopting him? And for a long time, I didn't know what to say. But now I do. No. I don't regret loving him. I regret thinking love meant erasing myself. Because love, real love, it doesn't demand that you go bankrupt, emotionally or financially, just to keep someone else standing. It builds. It gives room. And most of all, it returns. That's the lesson I learned. Too late maybe, but also just in time. I wasn't perfect. Wasn't gentle every day. Wasn't selfless without a flicker of bitterness. But I was there. And now for the first time in my life, I am here. Fully. And entirely. For me. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched something in you, even a little, I'm truly grateful. Please share in the comments what you think about the mother and her son. Whose side were you on? What would you have done? And if you noticed any mistakes, whether in the voiceover or the story itself, don't hesitate to tell me. I'll fix it. I care. Because I'm doing my best for you. With love, Anna.